Hello and welcome to TidyX episode 95. TidyX is a screencast where we go through and explain how our code works. My name is Ellis Hughes. You can find me on Twitter at Ellis_Hughes.
And my name's Patrick Ward. You can find me on Twitter at OSPPatrick and at Tidy_explained is where you can find both of us on Twitter. Or you can drop us an email, tidy.explained@gmail.com. Or you can take up an issue on the GitHub repo. But most people like to go to the YouTube channel and drop a message, comment, question, etc. Like and subscribe and drop that right in the comment section. We also have a Patreon page if you like the work that we're doing, and we like doing it. So if you like it and you'd like to buy us a beer or coffee, we'd greatly appreciate it. And we would go and spend that money on maybe go down to Georgetown Brewing Company, really nice nice brewing company here in Seattle, and get ourselves a cold one.
Yes, shout out. But yeah, so all right, so episode 95. I want to do a quick little shout out that this is now 2 years since we recorded our very first episode of TidyX. 2 years.
That's
Patrick, this has been, I've really enjoyed doing this.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone that has been with us since the beginning.
Yeah.
I know I have enjoyed doing this and sharing information with you and hearing back from you all, telling us how you all have valued this. I've had people reach out to me saying this helped them get jobs. So it fills me with happiness to know that we're helping people.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. 2 years, obviously. Everybody that likes and subscribes and comments and shares on Twitter, shares with their own followers. That's super awesome. And likewise, I've had people reach out and tell me how useful this has been in their job, and all that kind of stuff. So it's really cool that we've been able to impact people, and it's cool that we've been able to stick with this for 2 years. Lots of screencasts and podcasts kind of ebb and flow. So we've stayed pretty consistent on a cadence for 2 straight years, which is pretty amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so now we got the mushy stuff out of the way. Episode 95 is actually going to start, and we're going to continue our series on R Markdown. So we've done a bunch of stuff teaching you how to set up your Markdown, how to write out your Markdown, how to set different output types. Last episode we covered parameterized reports and the cool stuff that you can do with setting your parameters. But now we're going to go a little bit into how you can make your reports interactive. So how you can make it so not just the report gets generated and that's the end of interactivity, but how you could then hand your report off to somebody and they can drill down a little bit on their own. So you don't have to be there, and they're empowered to sort things out and answer questions on their own.
Yep.
So I will share my screen so Patrick can see what we're talking about. Patrick, do you have anything to talk about?
This is one of the awesome ads of R Markdown is that up until now, we've really been dealing with static reports, which are useful. And the parameters, knitting with parameters is cool because there's an interactivity to it for the person who's making the report, who has to print the report, who has to deliver the report. But now, with HTML widgets that we can embed into these reports, we're giving some of that user interaction function to the person that's getting the report. So now we're not talking about knitting a PDF or a Word document or a static report. We're talking about knitting a live HTML report that they can go in and play with and interact with. And so that is one of the really cool things of our Markdown reports. I use these all the time. I think they're awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, so now that we've given it a glowing review and totally prepped you for it, let's take you through this and step you through the code. So as always, we have our Markdown header, or the YAML header here at the very top. We've got our title, date, output. As you note, this has to be an HTML document if we're going to be doing these interactive outputs because they are technically HTML widgets, which is a package that exists in the R ecosystem that makes it so you can basically inject your HTML code as well as the JavaScript required to run that code into your R Markdown. It also works for Shiny and other different pieces of the R ecosystem, but we're doing this in reference to our Markdown documents. We've got our setup chunk here at the very top. So we are going to set our knitter op chunks options, which reminder sets all the options across the various chunks. We're going to say echo is false because we don't want the code to be printed. We're going to set warning to false and message to false because we don't want to be printing out random warnings and messages to our output. Next, we're going to load in the libraries that we're going to be needing here. So we're going to load tidyverse for data manipulation needs. The Laman.
Yep.
Laman.
Sean Laman's baseball. This is an awesome package. I mean, what a great job he's done of just curating baseball data for years on end. So
yep.
We're going to use that. Yep.
Yeah, we got Plotly, which is a really cool plotting library. We've definitely talked about this in the past. And then the DT library to allow us to create data tables. The HTML widget that's a data table. So we've got that. So we're going to load in our library, set our options. Next, we're going to bring in data for us to use to actually create our report. And so this time we're going to be using the batting and people data sets from the Lawman package. So we load that in, calling data on batting and data on people. So now if we do a quick ls, that'll show that is ls lists the objects that exist in my environment. So I have batting and people now in my environment. We're also going to set our theme to be theme light because we just like the way it looks. So this is some initial data manipulation that we're doing to the data that we just loaded in. As we've talked about in this series, we're not really super focused on this part of the code, but we will step through it. So we're going to take this batting data set, which has all the players in the year that they played in, and then statistics about them. We're going to filter to keep everything between 2000 and 2019 for year ID. Then we're going to keep all players that have an at-bat greater than the quantile of the 75th percentile. That was a very backwards way of saying that. But we're going to keep all players that have an at-bat at least equal to or greater than to the 75th percentile of people. Then we're going to select to keep player ID, year, team, games, at-bats, hits, BB.
Based on balls. Based on balls, walks, hit by pitches, and sacrifice flies.
Okay, there we go. Maybe Patrick
and we
should
need
take
those.
us through
We need
this.
those. Yeah, we need those to calculate the on-base percentage, which is going to be our plot. So there's the calculation for on-base percentage, and then we're just going to join in the people because that batting data only lives on player IDs. So we're going to join this in so that we have actual names of people. And then we also get information about their birth year and when they debuted and when their final game was, because then we'll just create a few dates here and a season age, which I actually will use in the filter here because I want to filter out anybody that's over 2000, which for their debut year. So I want anybody that started their year in 2000. And then we're going to filter again to anybody that has at least 8 or more seasons, because we're going to do a little time series plotting. And if they have 2 seasons, time series really isn't that fun.
It's not very interesting to look at. And we're going to call an ungroup at the very end there so that we don't keep that grouping set. So now we have this DF data set here, which is our players and in their statistics for all players who started in the year 2000 and have at least 8 years of playing up until 2019.
Correct.
Then we are also, because this is a lot of players, as you can see, this is 1,800 rows. We don't need all the players. So what we're going to do to display later on in a plot. So we're going to take a set of C to set a random. We're going to run a random process here. We're going to take DF, get all the player IDs. So all these player IDs here. We're going to sample 20 of them out. And we're going to pull out that player ID. So basically what we're doing is we're randomly selecting 20 different players. And we're setting the seed so we always select the same set of random 20 players for consistency in our code here. And then we're going to filter DF to keep all those players, those 20 players that we selected, and arrange by player ID and year ID. So now if we take a quick look at that, we can say that Elvis Andrew from the year 2009 to 2018, and probably a little bit past that too, played for Texas, and this is his season stats there. Then we're going to take teams. We're going to also keep between the years 2000 and 2019. We're going to calculate their win percentage, dividing wins by games, and if they are a playoff team, we're going to create a little flag for that. So if they were a division winner, or not a division winner, and not a world championship winner, we say, yep, they didn't go to the playoffs, otherwise they do. So it's kind of a little bit of inverse logic there. But that works. And then we're going to only keep the team name, year, the league ID, win percentage, and playoff team. So there we got that sort of information here. And now we're going to actually go and create a cool plot. Patrick, you want to take us through this?
All right, so we're going to create a Plotly interactive plot, and this is going to be of the players. So the first thing, and you're going to have to kind of think through this because the Plotly syntax is always a little bit funky, but the first thing that we want to do is we want to set up this highlight key, and we're going to use our data, and then we want to make sure that we're able to highlight within this interactive plot by the name of the individual batter. So we set up highlight key on this, and that's going to declare the condition that we're searching on.
There we go. So now we've got players, and it's got this fun little shared data deal here.
Yep. And the next thing that we need to do is initialize kind of the base plot. This literally does nothing except initialize the canvas that we're going to put everything on. So I call it plot initialize, and we use this plot underscore ly function. We pass to it the condition that we're highlighting on, and we also pass to it the initial color. So when we initially pull up this plot, it's going to have all the players with just black lines until we start selecting people, and then it's going to gray everybody out and just highlight the person we're interested in. And that's why we need to make sure that we group this by name. Once we've got the plot, kind of that base plot area initialized, you'll see that nothing's on this plot yet. It's literally just an X and a Y axis. We're ready to create the line plot. So we're going to take that initialized plot. We're going to throw the names in there. And then we're going to add lines. So the x-axis is going to be the year, and the y-axis is that on-base percentage that we calculated from their season data. And so if we run this, we're just going to get a straight-up plot of all the players in black, whatever. It was 20 players, so there it is. Kind of messy, but we're going to add some cool option here to allow it to be interactive. So we're going to use this highlight function, which sets up the key. And the key is going to pop up at the top. We're going to take that season plot, and we're going to put it in there to let it know that we want to use this highlight key. We're going to use on equals plotly click so that it works by clicking on to the onto the plot area. Select eyes is true, dynamic is true, and persistent is true. These are all these are all arguments that basically allow Plotly to do this, which is now we have this cool way of selecting players, and you can see that every time he selects a player, it changes from gray or to whatever color he'd like it to be, and you can double click and get back out and get everybody's data. You can zoom in on that plot, so you can pick a player and zoom in on a year if you were like to. Yeah, you could just
It's not letting me do it.
Oh really? You can't hold down your right click and zoom?
Apparently not.
Oh, weird. You should be able to.
Maybe it's just disabled in this preview.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, you can hover over and you get the actual. There's the player, Dan Ugla, Brian Roberts. All right, so that's cool. So we've got one piece of our interactive report. The next piece is going to be to build a data table.
Yep. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take that DF teams data set that we created earlier. We're going to mutate to convert these all over into factors here. And then we're going to throw it into the data table function, which is from the DT package. Just to be clear, it's not the data.table. Like don't cross those two there. Data.tables for data manipulation. It's a super powerful library. So then we've got to set a bunch of options in here. So I always find this interesting because functionally under the hood, this is going to be converted into a JSON and sent off to a bunch of JavaScript to be handled. So that's why some of the syntax looks a little funny with this. And so just like when you know that, that explains why some of this looks a little weird sometimes. So we're going to set the row names to false because we don't have any actual row names that are meaningful in our data set here, which is a good practice. We're going to set filter because you can set it to be on top or on bottom. We're going to set the filter buttons to be on the very top. We're going to set the class of the cell. So we're going to set cell border and we're going to set stripes. So now that they're going to have nice little stripings in them, we're going to set extensions to be buttons. And the cool thing about this is that allows you, it creates a couple buttons at the very top of your data table where you can download the data that exists as like a CSV or PDF or some other outputs as well. And so this allows it to just be embedded in your Word doc or into your HTML. And then other people, if they're interested in the data that you provided, they can click download and then they can get it and they can go off and do their own thing. So that's kind of a cool thing for people. And then we're going to set a bunch of these options here. Patrick, do you want to take us through these?
Yeah, so setting the options here, you have to, again, you're going to create these into a list and then lists of lists, and that's to handle the JavaScript conversion that's going to happen on the back end once you run this function. So within this list, I'm going to set the column defs. And column defs is an argument that explains what we want, how we want the columns to behave, whether we can set them to like scroll and all kinds of different things. With this, what I'm setting is the target to be 4 and visible equals false. Now, if you looked at the head of the DF teams data set that we're using, so if we pull the head up here, I just want to point out that we have 5 columns. So when you're working inside of the data table in the column defs, in the lists, counting here starts at 0. When you get outside of data table and you want to format the columns, counting starts at 1. So I don't know why it is. It's going to totally hang you up a few times and you're going to get annoyed, but that's just what happened. So here I'm saying that I want the 5th column, but really the 4th column if we start at 0, to be invisible. And so I set visible equals false. And why do I want it to be? Why don't I just remove it at the top, at the outset? The reason is because I'm going to call that column later on to do some highlighting of one of the other cells. And if I need to do that, it has to remain within the data table. I just don't want to show it out. So I'm going to set that one to be invisible by saying visible equals false. Page length is a way, if you don't do this, it's going to default to 5, and then you have selections of 5, 10, 20, 30, up to 100. I'm going to set it to 30 because there's 30 teams in the MLB, and so you want to see all 30 teams for a season. And then the DOM equals BRT. That's basically the way that those buttons that we set up at the top with extensions, that's how they get on the page. So we'll have a CSV button, a PDF button, and a print button. And then at the end, I'm just going to explicitly name the columns since I don't want the columns that I had previously named there. The other thing to note here is before the data table, I set all of the character ones exactly to factors, explicitly to factors. And you're going to need to do this if you want, when you filter, if you want them to come up as a dropdown. If they're characters, you have to type everything in and you don't get autofill and it doesn't drop down. So I did that at the top. So I'm going to set the column name specifically. And now I'm just going to do a few styling points here. I'm going to set the win percentage, which is now in column 4, because again, we're outside of data table. So now we're counting 1 to 5. So column 4 is going to be an actual percentage. And then the format style. Okay, here's where the magic is. I'm going to say I want to look at the name column. And with that name column, I want to use the playoff team column, the column that I've hidden. And I'm going to use that column to set the background color. So I'm styling the background color of the name column using the playoff team column. And what I'm saying is anytime it says no playoffs, color it light gray. And anytime it says playoffs, color it pale green. So now we'll have a table that's totally interactive and that highlights our playoff teams with a background color. And so now you can actually go up and you can select a team or select a season or whatever you'd like to do. And then you could actually hit CSV, or if you hit copy, it'll copy it out, and you could copy it to copy and paste it out to a CSV or a Word document or something like that. Yeah, so there you go. We copied out 85. Actually, our team column is over the seasons, so we must have our columns messed up there. Let's go back to our data table for a second and see here. Did we miss something? Team.
Did we mix
season,
it up?
League. Team.
Oh,
season.
that looks
league,
right.
Win percentage.
It's just the magic of the
column.
Probably row name's false. Probably why.
No, that shouldn't. Just run the data table. Don't. Well, yeah. Let's see what happens if you do that. I don't think that would be weird. Oh, see. Oh,
that bumped him over one.
It's the visible, the invisible column. Why did that pop up? Yes, targets visible equals false. Huh. It should be invisible.
Live debugging, folks.
Yeah, right. Oh, there it didn't go. There it didn't pop up. Team, season, league, and then let's see the full table again. Team, season, league. Oh.
It might just not be previewing correctly. But anyway, so the cool thing is,
you saw us interacting.
You saw us interacting with this, but the cool thing is, that's not the only way you can interact with it, right? So now you could print this, and now this is going to generate the thing. I'm just going to open it in browser because that looks so much better. That popped up over here, and so now you can see like it's just as interactive as it was in my RStudio, except this is fully just an HTML page. So I could save this, I can just email this to Patrick, and he can play around with this just as easily as I can. So you can go through, be curious about those players, and look at a couple other players and see how they compare. I don't know if they're drafting or looking at players if we're in baseball. I don't know.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah.
You could print a table. You can select a team. You could select a season. You could select a league. All those options. If you're in the win percentage filter, I think so. If you click into that, you could drag and select like only teams over 60% or whatever, stuff like that.
Get all the American League teams there that also have a high win percentage.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So pretty cool.
Yeah, but that's how you can add some interactivity, some cool functionality into your reports so that you can, send this off to your manager and go, hey, I created the report like you asked. Here's the things that I highlighted, but, if you want, all the data is still there. So you can poke through if you really have a favorite team, or like if you're working in like biology or something like that. I know biologists tend to have like their favorite gene or something like that maybe when you're doing a GWAS, they would want to look at, and you could give them hey, statistically, these are the ones that are significant, but I included all of them for you, so you can poke through if you know that there's one of particular importance. I don't know, coming up with random reasons why this would be valuable, but we know it is valuable because we do it. Totally. Yeah. So I think with that, that is what we wanted to cover. I think, HTML widgets are super cool. I love how it like injects this HTML and JavaScript and adds this really cool functionality into our markdowns that could be potentially kind of boring or kind of just flat and one-dimensional. People love to click on stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So with that, I think we're going to call it 2 years of TidyX. Thank you all so much. My name is Ellis Hughes. You can find me on Twitter at Ellis_Hughes.
And 2 years. Thanks a lot. We appreciate it. My name's Patrick Ward. OSP Patrick is my Twitter handle. At Tidy_explained is our Twitter handle. Tidy.explained@gmail.com is our email address. You can open up an issue on the GitHub repo, which most people don't do. They tend to go to YouTube, like and subscribe, and drop a comment underneath the video. So that's the most common way. And as always, if you like what we're doing and we enjoy doing it for 2 straight years and you want to buy us a coffee or beer, we do have a Patreon page.
Yes. Thank you all so much, and keep on exploring your world.